everybody, and welcome to the Boxing Locker. I am Matt Goddard, former professional boxer, now boxing coach. If you've subscribed and you follow me, then you would have heard that a trillion, billion, gazillion times by now. I'm going to come up with a jingle or something at some time soon, I'm sure of it. But till then, let's crack on with this. And today, we are going to talk about the centre line. Now, what I'm trying to do is kind of dispel all of these confusing, jargon-filled kind of terminologies that are used in boxing gyms by boxing coaches, and that a lot of people probably don't really understand, okay? So today I'm going to talk to you about the centre line, what it is, what it's for, when you want to be on it, when you want to be off of it, all of those kind of things, okay? So now the centre line is imaginary. It doesn't exist. It's not a real thing. But if I'm in my boxing stance facing you here, the centre line is the middle of my body, all right? Specifically right down the centre of me. Whether I'm here, whether I'm here, whether I'm here, it doesn't matter. The centre line is basically from the middle of my hips, directly vertical, okay? Directly vertical, 0 on the axis, right? The vertical axis. So I'm in my boxing stance, right? Now, what I want to do is keep my straight punches on the centre line, as in the punch itself. Keep my hooks finishing at that centre line, and my uppercuts driving up that centre line as much as possible, because that's where my opponent is, right? So I'm in my boxing stance, all of our punches move towards that centre line. What you've got to remember alongside that, however, is that your opponent is also aiming at your centre line, okay? So I'm in my boxing stance and I'm throwing punches. If my head stays on the centre line, then it's going to be a lot easier for my opponent to throw his punches and land his shots. He could come over the top of it, come under, slip and move, which is what we're going to get into shortly. And there's loads of options, okay? The important thing for you is that when you punch, you want to get your head off the centre line as often as possible. So, for example, I throw a jab with my head on the line. Now, there is no way that I want to be repeating that with my head in the same position. So I might slip and drop while I jab. See how the jab still goes down the centre line? And then I come back in, all right? So jab, jab. So I've taken my head off the centre line. Now I'm going to go jab, jab. Rather than come back in, I'm going to roll off the centre line and come back up, bring my head. See how my head's pulled over, away from the shoulder, create a bit more space. So I'm not telling you specifically that's the combination. What I'm telling you is the important thing to do when you are punching is to remember that your head cannot stay on that centre line. Another thing to remember is, say I throw a 3-punch combination, not to keep my head there. So I go 3 punches and then I get my head off the line. Now what that does is defensively it makes you a lot more responsible. 1, 2, 3, roll that way. 1, 2, 3, roll that way. 1, 2, 3, slip. 1, 2, 3, slip. Getting my head off the centre line gives my opponent a moving target, okay? Becomes a lot more difficult for them to pick that centre line, because where the centre line is here, I'm over here, I'm over here, I'm under here, I'm under here. I've stepped this way, I've stepped this way, okay? That's something else that we've got to remember. So not only is it head movement and punches that get us off the centre line, see them overhands, slip and uppercut, slip and uppercut, slip and jab, slip and cross. You can do the same thing to the body with those. Not only is it that head movement, the upper body movement that gets off the centre line, it's also footwork. So if I'm here and I throw my 3 shots, my opponent's going to come back here, I take a step to the left. I've created a whole new angle of attack, wop, wop, step to the right, bop, 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 step to the right, bop, 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 pivot to the left, bop, 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 shift to the right. What you're doing by doing that is taking yourself away from that centre line, creating a new angle of attack, making your opponent adjust. So when I go wop, wop here, and I'm ready to attack again, my opponent's going to turn to face me. I go this way, bop, 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 I go back, bop, bop, I go off, bop, bop, I go off, bop, bop, I shift. Keep moving, creating new angles of attack all the time. So that centre line is, whilst imaginary, incredibly, incredibly important in boxing, okay? If I'm in my boxing stance, remember, my opponent, I'm trying to attack their centre line as often as possible. All of my shots, angling, attacking that centre line to body and head. And now I incorporate a bit of head movement to get my head off that centre line. Footwork comes into it. And that's basically the gist of the whole thing, guys. So my attacks aren't upright and static. I'm not throwing everything with no movement. All of my punches are targeting that same line that I'm imagining down the center of me, but my head is moving off the center line. My feet are getting me out of there. My punches are punched with movement, thrown with movement to create space, to set up counters. So if I throw that jab to the head and I slip, this hand's tucked in here, my head's moved away, looking out the side of my eye, I'm in a lovely position there. Whop, straight over the top, chop that punch over, shoulders protecting my head, off the center line, roll under, come again, off, off. So many options if you're doing it correctly and you understand why you're doing it. So, next time you hear somebody mention the center line and you think, what on earth is that? What does that actually mean though? You're talking about it, but I don't get it, you know? This is it, right? The center line is the primary target of your opponent, the primary target of you, and the more you can get off that center line with head movement, punching with head movement, punching with footwork, and with independent footwork, the more effective, the more competent, and the more difficult to beat you will be, okay? Remember, always remember to drill these things and take your time developing, okay? So I'm in my boxing position, I'm gonna throw a jab, then I'm gonna slip the jab. Throw a jab, slip the jab. Easy way to practice getting off the center line. So I jab and I cross over. Jab and I cross over. I get my head over to that center line, punching down it, look at that. Back, straight over, jab, 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 cross, jab, cross, slip, jab, cross, slip. Simple drills. Don't layer it up with a great amount of complexity. Get the simple drills, get the fundamentals working together, and then you combine it all when you're doing rounds of just free flow and shadow boxing. As I said, shifting, bop, bop, shifting position, stepping across, slipping with your punches, attacking the body, getting your head off that center line. It all comes together with practicing the individual parts and making them combine to be something more concrete, more effective, more foundationally correct. As always, thank you for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts or questions in the comments below. Any ideas for other videos that you'd like to see, and I'll get back to you. Don't forget to subscribe, like, all that good stuff. And have a wicked day. Thanks for tuning in. As always, I appreciate all of my subscribers and everybody who bothers to watch the videos.